best swordsman. Ha! I'm the best swordsman.
Blessings of the Dark Gods upon you, legionaries, and welcome to the Best Swordsman series. The Best Swordsman is not me. I am but a humble host and servant of the young god. The Best Swordsman is an ideal founded on the principles of tight technical play and good sportsmanship. And today, that's what we're going to explore, specifically through the Iron Warriors, which have recently been favored by the developers to enjoy a small little buff. Let's take a look at that. What is there to say about Dreygur? Well, for starters, he's doing sci-fi names just fine. We've taken a normal name, Derek, good name, and we've changed a consonant in a way you'd never expect. And now we have Narek. We're now in the 31st millennium. Easy, right? Dreygur is cool because he's got Survivor 5. And for the low cost of 1 energy, you get an Iron Warriors vehicle, which we'll look at very soon because they're super cool. You may not know this about me, but I'm not an Iron Warrior. I'm too busy drinking mimosas out of the skulls of my enemies, blasted to glass. So, to do this episode, I got some help from a friend. This deck is brought to you by Orthanol. He is the Noble Lodge Master of the Wah Lodge and a filthy greenskin. As you can see by the deck, we have slanted everything towards surviving the early game, weathering the storm, removing our opponent's troops and any force that they can put forward. And what we'll do is try and punish them later with all of the awesome Iron Warriors vehicles we're able to generate and buff. Let's take a look at a couple of the key cards. We've got Rhino 77/235, very efficient. It is a good body for 3 energy, and we'll fish out one of our 2 Astartes cards, like the Rakarus Squad, who will help us stall in the early game, or Taranthikos Veteran, who is a finisher and a mid-game beater, very good for his cost. The deck complements Dreygur's defensive buff with Logos, which will keep you alive a little longer and buff your troops' offense. But what really makes the deck shine and just be a blast to play and get run over by, to be fair, he's run me over with it, is all the vehicles that you get access to through Dreygur. And the fact they were able to generate them for such a cheap cost with a buff, a free buff. Well, you're paying an energy for it, but it's basically a free buff. Let's look at the Iron Warriors vehicles that you might luck into. Good old Ancient Hrend. The deck is main decking one of these because he's just overall very good for 6 energy. We've got the ever useful big body frontline Promodon. The versatile Predator Destructor, which is just so much better with a buff added to it. The deck tends to close out in the late game, so the ability to basically be reshuffled back into your deck and come back into your hand possibly at a cost of 4 energy can be pretty handy later when you're also able to do stuff like make a barricade or remove enemy troops and be able to play a threat so cheaply. So it's not anything to sneer at, really. Land Raider 23/2, not super awesome, but okay, good enough. I'm a little hard on it, but at the end of the day, it's buffing everything you put into play after that. So that's kind of fair. I'm just hard on troops that don't do something right away. I'm greedy and I'm in a rush. When the Land Raider impresses me, I'll be impressed. Iron Circle, another huge frontline. Vehicle frontliners are really hard to remove. And the Sikaran, which is maybe my favorite. Just its flank is cool. It's nice. And finally, a good old solid beater with added shield. Alright, enough about vehicle cards. Let's just generate them for 1 energy and then play them. Our starting hand here, we want as much curve towards the early game as we can. We've decided to pass over Ambassador Malgator really because it's not super useful against Corvus Corax typically. Too many of the infantry and Astartes in the deck are all already in stealth. We're going to wager on most efficiently removing the enemy stealth troop by playing Artillery Strike on 4 energy. That means that until then, we can start investing in vehicles in our hands, which will serve as a toolbox of really powerful troops in the late game, and we'll have a whole variety of them for every occasion. Most of them are good for one occasion, which is beatdowns, but it's nice to have options. And we're going to just keep generating vehicles now that we can bide some time, and hopefully really what we're betting on here is that we can bait out a Scimitar jet bikes, the 4-2 flank vehicle troop that Ravenguard plays. He didn't play it, but that's okay. We'll go ahead and we'll remove that Numis squad. We could attack with the 2-1 and deal 2 damage, but that is not how we will most efficiently deliver victory to the War Master. So instead we will leave the troop up. We will otherwise force them to pay attention to it. Sometimes you can gamble on baiting out actions from them. In this case, we simply just lost out, plain and simple. But who knows, he may not have otherwise spent an artillery strike. Some people wait until it's exactly efficient to destroy 3 troops. 5 energy is still very much the development phase of our game. It's still pretty early for us. We don't have room to really flex right now. And the reason we try to be efficient with cards like Artillery Strike, for example, and try and bait out the enemy with other simple actions is just so we can be very efficient with removal so we don't have to use our face. We've taken a fair bit of damage so far, but we're very much still in the game, and the Survivor 5 really does help slow down a death blow. That extra turn can be all you need. This looks painful, but what's more painful is the state of our opponent's hand. And this is where we start to really turn things around as they run out of steam. The board is clear, and that's not always a good thing for Ravenguard. They get a lot more value out of being reactive. But with the Raven Talons, he's just still very aggressive. Ow. We're getting closer. We're getting closer to being able to begin to lay down our real threats. But we need to keep biding some time. This is too much damage to take right now. Die. Let's make some more. We're not doing anything better with Narek, and it's so cheap to do. We're just going to bide a little bit more time. Next turn, we have a plan. It's good to save a Rakarus squad, as you can see in our hand, for later occasions when you can then... I won't spoil it. Rust in pieces, Pi Alpha. We expected that. We did not expect our opponent to pass turn with no energy spent. It's sometimes the very real effect of burnout. Bear in mind our opponent has 1 less card than you really see in hand. And if that hand is just full of removal, very possible in a Ravenguard deck, it's just no good. But this is what happens when you grind them down sometimes. Very dangerous card being played here. We have answers in our hand because we have been holding on to Arcadius. Arcadius is great at this stage of the game, because whoever's hiding, we will find them. We will bash them with our tanks. And even though we've lost a threat, look at how many more we have. Another Predator Destructor. Just when he thought he was out, our Predator Destructor pulled him back in.
Good quote. Great movie.
And next turn, we've got energy to play Latrathis or Ancient Rend if... I mean, I don't know why we would, but we could. We could if we chose to. Sky's the limit. Because we're alive, and we're at 10 energy. Yes, we're still alive. And so long as we're alive, with this much energy, we can really go to town on an opponent. We just can't let them catch up. Now I know some of you want to slam the Arcadius because nothing's better than breaking Corvus Corax's stealth. Punch him in the face, but don't punch him in the face with your Arcadius. Save it. Trust me. Save it for a death blow. 7 damage from 32 doesn't put you ahead. And you notice what's doing all the heavy lifting here, really? A barricade. A barricade. Because a Ravenguard player thought that they don't need to pay attention to barricades, because we were dying very quickly. And they mostly don't need to pay attention to barricades, but for removal's sake, oh yeah, they really do. And our opponent has made a reasonable wager here that we are so low on health that they can race us down. A minor mistake with the Solaro bikes play on their part, but that's okay. I do it all the time. Now we can look for some options so we can take a few actions. Get a medium-term threat on there and start stabilizing. We are so low on health. We are so low on health that we can't even remove a measly 2-2 and feel safe. But the harder we make him work to burst our survivor, just the better chances are that we can just stick maybe one more threat on the board so we can deliver lethal within 2 turns. That's the goal here. Oh, Ambassador Melgator, picking out one of the very few targets he has in this deck. This deck is virtually Melgator proof, by the way. As you can see by the lumbering 813 vehicle on my right. There are tons of options. We have a huge hand. Typically in situations like this where we basically have no board to oppose us, you want to play a big threat. The bigger the threat, the better. Because now we are basically in an unstoppable situation. We have lethal even if he chooses to hide, and I very doubt that he can handle 2 tanks. But can he kill us? No. Can't pull it off. 1,000 Ways to Die, Dreygur edition, but we chose Contrador plus double Latrathis. You can take Dreygur for a spin and go Death by Destructor or Iron Circle. I've seen it all. It's gruesome.
Bad day to be a loyalist. Always a bad day to be a loyalist. Be a traitor. Pray to the Chaos Gods. It feels good. You know you want to do it. Do it. We're all sinners. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. If there's more specific content that you'd like to see or questions you have about Iron Warriors, please leave a comment. I'll read and reply to them all. And if there's certain videos that you're interested in watching, I'll get working on them eventually. Thanks for tuning in.
Well, that's another slash on my face. Thanks for tuning into the Best Swordsman series. Catch you on the ladder.